挽回
死なないために死ぬほど準備することなんて
絵に秘められた
ことでしょ。
光栄だけど買いかぶりっすよ。
Hello guys, it's me Simo Orahara, and in this video we will talk about the Shikai of Shinigami and its release command by reading some of Kobo's recent answers on this topic. First of all, we all know that every Zanpakuto has two releases, and they are the Shikai release and the Bankai release. And the fact that the Shikai is the first release of the Zanpakuto made it easy to learn compared to the Bankai release. That's why almost all the Shinigami we've seen their Shikai, whether from the vice captains like Rangiku, Mumu, Kira, and even some other Shinigami like Yumichika and some of the officers of the third squad. Even Hanataro can use Shikai, because the first thing you need to do in order to release the Shikai is to know the name of your Zanpakuto. Without it, you can't awaken your Zanpakuto. And we had an example of that. Zaraki. Zaraki is the only person who became a captain without owning a Bankai, without even knowing the name of his Zanpakuto in order to use the Shikai. To the extent that some of the Shinigami and a lot of fans as well, they believed that the shape of his sword is a constant release of Shikai, but it turned out later that's not the case. Of course, knowing the name alone is not enough, and we've seen this with Ichigo. Ichigo got to know the name of his Zanpakuto in his training with Urahara Kizuki, and so he thought that that's it, now he can use Zangetsu and he could fight as he wanted. But during his battle against Zaraki Kinpachi, Ichigo knew that it was more than just knowing the name. And there, when the fake Zangetsu moved him inside his inner world to communicate with Zangetsu, the real one, and the latter taught him the first basics of communicating with the Zanpakuto and relying on it, so that the Zanpakuto can give him the necessary power he wants. However, if you want to talk about Shikai more accurately, we can't rely on Ichigo because he is a special case. He has a constant release of Shikai, and more than that, we don't know the release command of Zangetsu, because according to Kobo's last answers, the release command plays a major role in the efficiency of the abilities of the Shikai. All the Shinigami we saw, they pronounce the Shikai command and then its name, and we noticed this with all the Shinigami, whether members of the Zero Squad, captains, vice captains, and even officers. And because of its importance, this fan asked Kobo about the short and the long releases. Why some Shinigami have long release and some short ones? And Kobo said that in general, the older Zanpakuto have a long release command. And that's quite true, because we have seen this in the fight that didn't complete between Kyoraku Ukitake versus Yamamoto. They all released their Shikai with the release command, and all the three have a long release command. I mean, we're not talking about a release command such as Byakuya or Zaraki, but we're talking about long and complex sentences. Therefore, the release command is necessary but not obligatory, because many Shinigami can release their Shikai without saying the release command or the name. The most prominent example that explains this situation is the fight that happened between Renji and Byakuya in the Soul Society arc. When Renji came to Byakuya, at that time he had just learned to release Bankai. Therefore, when he wanted to attack Byakuya, he attacked him without the need to say the command release of his Shikai or the name of the Zanpakuto. And Byakuya noticed this and he talked about that. So, those who can release the Bankai can free the Shikai without the need to say the release command, and we have noticed this in many battles of the captains. But here what's new. This issue was brought up to Kobo through a second question related to Shikai. So this fan asked Kobo, is there a difference between the one who released the Shikai without the release command and the one who said the release command? And here Kobo will answer two important things. The first thing is that only experts can release Shikai without the release command. And this is consistent with what I said a while ago. Shinigami who are able to release Bankai can do so, since releasing Bankai requires a Shinigami to be a good master of Shikai and reach a good stage of communication with his Zanpakuto. That's why we have seen several Shinigami fight their opponents without saying the release command, like what Kyoraku and Okitake did against Shark. But the second thing which is new is that Kobo says that if the release of Shikai was done without the release command, then the abilities of the Zanpakuto would require some time to reach the maximum effectiveness. In other words, releasing the Shikai without the release command makes the power of the Shikai not the same as if the Shinigami released the Shikai with it. Because the issue of Zanpakuto's names and how to deal with them plays a big role in how much power the Zanpakuto will unleash. I mean, we notice that when Yumichika calls his Zanpakuto by another name different than its real name, the Zanpakuto takes on another form and does not fully produce his power. So what about someone who doesn't call even the name of his Zanpakuto in the release command? But I think experts like Yamamoto, Kyoraku, Okitake, and maybe Urahara Kisuke and other Shinigamis, they are able to release Shikai without the release command and reduce the time required for their abilities to reach maximum efficiency. This all depends mainly on the degree to which the Shinigami communicates with the Zanpakuto. But this leads us to ask an important question. If the command release plays a role in the efficiency of the abilities of the Shikai, so what about Ichigo? We don't know what is the release command of his Shikai. And based on the answer of Kobo, I think that Ichigo had a good opportunity when he was at Nimaya's palace to learn the command release of his Zanpakuto. Thus, he would even be able to restore Zangetsu to a normal sword. Or is it different for Ichigo because he basically has a special Asauchi? But frankly, when I read the answers of Kobo and even the questions, I want now to know the release command of Zangetsu, and if Ichigo had learned the command release of his Zanpakuto, would have that have any effects on the power of Ichigo? I mean here the power of Shikai. And I think that's possible because in the past only Zaraki and Ichigo were the ones who did not know about the release of the Shikai. But Zaraki in the final arc overcame this issue. He knew the name of his Zanpakuto, which is Nozarashi, as well as the release command, which is Nome Nozarashi. And Zaraki's knowledge of these things made Zaraki gain all his Zanpakuto's abilities. So I think, for example, if Ichigo knew the release command of Zangetsu, this might give us another view of power of Zangetsu than the one we saw in the story. And also I want to refer to the matter of the older Zanpakuto in its long release command. Does this mean that the release command of the Shikai may change with time? So for example, Yamamoto had a one-word release command for Yujin Jakka in the past. And with time, Yujin Jakka gave Yamamoto other words that made the release command as we saw it. And if that's the case, this means that maybe the youngest Shinigami can obtain a long release command in the future. So guys, tell me your opinions. What do you think about this matter? Give me your comments and see you guys in my next video.